Loss number one is in the books for the Utah Hockey Club, but that's not a bad thing. Seriously, Robyn and I are going to tell you why. Stick around. Was this expected? And now what? You got to finish a road trip by flying all the way across the country. We'll talk about that and more coming up on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Locked On Utah Hockey Club, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leano here with you, and we do talk Utah Hockey Club every day. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Robyn, we knew it had to happen at some point. No team has ever gone 82-0, but after a sweet, offensively loaded 3-0 start, things just did not go the way of the Utah Hockey Club. They lose to the Devils, and it was just one of those games. You get shut out on the road at New Jersey. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are, Tom. And it's something that I think a lot of us were trying to prepare everyone, because like you'll be on that high, right? You're on that high of that first of the, new franchise win and all these exciting ways. You're like, we are unstoppable. And then all of a sudden this loss comes in. And it really, to me, Tom, I think it addresses, like, it brings back up kind of the issues that we've talked about over the offseason, like issues that we thought are areas of concern. We talked about that, right? Areas of concern for this team heading into the season. And there were even some of those issues, a glimpse of those issues in the wins. But it really came up to a forefront in this loss to the New Jersey Devils.
Broken down by periods, not a bad game. The first period was actually a good road period. It was actually a very boring period from a lot of perspectives. I mean, there was, 11 total shots split evenly between the teams. Yes, each team had 5.5 shots. No, but I mean, it was a dull, boring road period, which is perfect. To me, that's what you want. If you're the Utah Hockey Club, you go on the road and you want to kind of keep it quiet, but then you get into a little penalty trouble and then you're giving up all these shots, but you don't increase the volume of your shots. So you can't come back in the second, give New Jersey 16 shots on goal and you stay at 5. And I think that, and now maybe there's a little bit of early season fatigue. The kids are on a high, Robyn, and the energy's up there, and then all that. You're going to hit a wall at some point, right? And I think maybe there was a little bit of a bump today as far as the energy levels, and they just didn't have the same jump they had to start the road trip.
No, and it definitely I wouldn't blame this team for being tired. Not only was it an earlier game, right? Matinee games. It was 1 p.m. in New Jersey, but they had already played those two other games, one on Long Island and one in actually New York, and you can only imagine how tired they were after that, and not alone having as quick of a start that they did in the 3 games that they've had. It was bound to happen that they were going to slow down like that. I think to me, Tom, it just saw me that how quickly it goes from 60 to 0, in sort of speak, right? Went from really, really fast to slowing things down and kind of getting a little bit behind themselves.
It's a humbling loss, and that's good because what they were doing was glossing over their mistakes a little bit. I mean, you look at the shots, 33-20. Yeah, sometimes shots don't indicate how the game went. These absolutely indicate how the game went. 2 of 7 on the power play for New Jersey, 0-4 for Utah. Yeah, there were a lot of calls, but Utah, especially in that second period, that's how the Devils capitalized and kind of put them down a little bit. Better job in the circle today, but I think Utah had been able to cover up the mistakes they'd made defensively. They'd been able to cover up the errors they had made. They were getting some big saves out of Connor Ingram, high danger save chances. All of those things did not happen today. They didn't score at all, let alone score enough to cover up their mistakes. And you also cannot win a game you don't score a goal in.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, that's the most important part. Like, is getting a goal. Not only that, getting a goal fast, right? Take a look at the games previously. How quickly Utah goes on to try to score a goal. It's pretty darn fast in most of these games. Usually within the first half of the first period, at the very least. The first 5 minutes of the first period. A couple of the games have, some of the games have been. That's kind of what I think a lot of people expected again. Like, oh, let's see how quick they can go. Get to that hot hand, get it to Dylan Gunther, see what you can do, get right in the slot. But I think New Jersey was just ready for them.
Well, in New Jersey plays a style that is conducive to shutting down a team like Utah, that if you aren't possessing the puck and really cycling it around on New Jersey and kind of running them around to the point where eventually you cycle them out of position, they are a pretty disciplined team for the most part. Now, I've watched actually 3 of the 4 Devils games this year before this one. And there were times where they did not look great. There were times when I thought when opposing teams were able to take it to them that, you could push them around a little bit and make them do things they didn't want to do. But for the most part, when New Jersey sticks to its game, that's what they do. They just kind of keep your shots to the outside. They prevent you from getting into the high danger areas. And I think Utah really did hit that wall against the Devils today. So I think, the energy, I mean, the 3 games here in New York has now come to a close in, 4.5 days. Not the easiest thing to do. Afternoon games are always a crapshoot, Robyn. We talked about this before.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you're up for it. Sometimes you're not. And obviously in the first period, neither team was up for it, but the Devils found their legs in the second.
They did. And I think the Devils even scored within the first, 2 minutes of the second period?
Yeah, the Devils, it was $1:14 into the second. That was a power play goal. Then 8:13, they scored again, even strength. And then 10:13 to the third was the other power play goal. So,
yeah, I mean, actually, there's another thing to mention too. Is like each of the periods towards the end, in the latter 2 minutes, and really, really close to the end of the periods, Utah takes a penalty, and that's something I want to address, Tom. We'll talk about that really quick. But first, a quick word from our sponsors on today's show. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season big with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get in a hunch and you're in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same place where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you just place your first $5 bet. You don't even have to win that $5. You just have to place a $5 bet, and they'll get you started with $200 in bonus bets. You can bet on anything from the spread to the money line to your over-under on points, and goes beyond NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL games. You see that we do a lot of odds on this show for Utah Hockey Club games. You can bet on all of that, and you get all those bonus bets. So why not try it now? Visit FanDuel.com and look at the odds for your favorite games and see, hey, is this worth making a bet? That's all on FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Tom. So right before the break, I mentioned taking penalties going into the end of periods. It doesn't help. First of all, it doesn't help taking a look at that. We saw based off when I brought up that stat page earlier, how penalized this team was, 14 penalty minutes. I mean, it could have been worse, but I feel like, to me, Tom, these penalties that Utah did take were at the most inopportune time. They were kind of, a lot of them, including, remember what I talked about before in the preseason. The everydayers know this. I talked about this. Taking too many men on the ice penalties. They did it again, and it cost them.
Shot themselves right in the foot. Yep. And it's funny, Robyn, you put that graphic up. When your penalty minutes are that high, when you should never have more penalty minutes than hits. They had 8 hits in that game. And 18-8, they were out hit by New Jersey. They had 14 minutes in penalties. That's not the effort you want, especially when the talk from your general manager and your coach and your organization is we're going to build a big, strong team that's going to be able to, push people around. Again, I believe that's a winning formula in the playoffs. So I support that, but they just didn't show up. There was no physical play there to back up the penalty minutes. And when you there's certain penalties that are acceptable in hockey to teams, and they will kill them off gladly. Number 1, sticking up for a teammate. Number 2, denying a blatant scoring chance, like maybe there's a wide open net, take the guy down. That's fine. We'll kill that.
Yeah.
But the lazy penalties, the hooking, the holding, the ones where you're not moving your feet to keep up with a guy. If you have to reach out and grab them or hook them or whatever, that's a bad penalty to take, especially in the offensive zone. And the mental mistakes. And too many men on the ice is a mental mistake. And that's a tough one. But again, those penalties are the hallmark of young teams still learning and figuring it out. And I know you're thinking to yourself, if you're sitting at home listening to this, Tom, these guys have been playing this game for probably 20 years by this point in their career. Shouldn't they have figured it out by now? It's always a new dynamic at the beginning of every year. When you add new players into the mix, you have new line mates, just a new process to figure out who's replacing who on every shift change. Sometimes it gets jumbled, but yes, it's a mental mistake, and they have to just knock that out of their game early.
They do. And I think that's something that, and again, it's a carryover from previous years that they continue to have this issue. But as you said, it's a young team. And I mean, I would have hoped they'd learn it by now. But, and again, it's still going to take some. I think they will. They will. I have no doubt about it. They still got this, like I was saying earlier, like you were saying, how young this team is. They will learn. To me, the question is, at what point? At what point do they actually figure it out?
Well, when they do, Robyn, that's when I think we're serious about talking about playoffs. I think that's the point where we can seriously look at this team as a playoff contender, is when they figure those things out. Because playoff teams don't make those mistakes.
No, they don't. I think that's an important bit, right? That they don't make those kind of mistakes. And sure, a playoff team might take one dumb penalty every blue moon. It happens to every team.
Sure it does.
It happens to every team.
Sure it does.
You unless you're one of those armchair people and you think they do it every game because you're trying to coach a team from your own couch. I know a lot of people do it. I've got friends who are armchair coaches.
Some people are really good at it.
Some people are really good at it. They make the call, and I look at them, and I'm like, "Interest." Like, okay.
But well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I think when it comes down to what we're talking about here in addressing the issues is the bullet point. These are the things you need to address early on in the season. Now that obviously they flew back across the country after the game, they're going in against an Anaheim team Wednesday that you should beat.
Yes.
And that's another important point. Although, I mean, Anaheim, is a young team with talent, just like Utah Hockey Club is a team on the outside looking in, just like Utah Hockey Club. So there's some similarities there. But again, if you're trying to separate yourself from the bottom, elevate to the middle this year, this is a team you got to put away. And it gives you a chance to bounce right back. Ingram will probably go back in on Wednesday night. And then you finish with 3 out of 4 on a road trip, which, Robyn, take nothing away from what they did in beating the Islanders, because they had to come back and do it and tie it and win it in overtime. And they had to do it against the Rangers and tie it and win it in overtime. That is a couple of feathers in the cap for early season success. But it also shows you how hard it is to sustain that. So I think that's a good lesson for this team to also learn. There is something to be said for pacing yourself, and you just got to take care of your own yard first. You have to be more vigilant in the D zone.
You have to do that. And I think the other thing too is you also got to find your pace, right? I mean, sure, like we talked about how quick this team is, but maybe that's what also caught up to them, right? Maybe like they they put out a lot of their effort because they're riding off the high of new team, new jerseys, new whatever, and they're feeling great, so they're giving it their all. But then by the time it gets to, another game, they tire themselves out.
Yeah, they definitely had the new car smell, right? I mean, they're the sexy pick right now. Everybody's looking at Utah Hockey Club. They're getting a lot of national attention, and deservedly so for some of the guys. So that's nice, but that doesn't sustain you through 82 games. So again, I think this is a good lesson to learn, and I'm sure that there'll be things to point out on the tape and things to talk about. And I mean, Robyn, I'm sure we'll get into it next segment, but there are, things that they really need to kind of knit together and figure out where they're going as a team with some of these things. And let's not forget, they're still not quite at 100%. Still no Bukestad, still no Marino. So there is that.
There is that. And we'll talk about that because I feel like that's another thing. That's another topic to it, not a topic of discussion. Plus, again, what else do they have to focus on moving forward to rebound after this loss? We'll do that right after this.
And today's show is brought to you in part by Hims. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing the men's healthcare. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis, and their generics are up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
All right, Tom. So let's take a look forward. I do want to really quick though. Do address those injuries too. I mean, from my understanding is first of all, John Marino is, I think based off schedule, I think that they're hoping to have him be back, but then maybe next week or so, right? I think that's the hope.
It's so last. So where are we here? We're early week. Maybe about a week ago, Andre Tourney described him as weeks. So to me, that is week to week, multiple weeks being, I don't know, late October, early November, who knows? But at this point, I don't think they have a timeline for him, Robyn. I don't know.
Yeah. Because I know he's that. I know because I also know Nick Bukestad is also set to be out for a little bit.
Yep.
The thing that hurts is Sean Dursey leaving the game with an upper body injury and not coming back.
Yes. And that was a tough one. And there were a couple of bumps and bruises in this one. And this is going to be a little bit of a depth test for this Utah Hockey Club. Now, hopefully Dursey's okay. Maybe it's just something that, he'll be all right by Wednesday. But it's physical sport, and I think that I was most scared this summer about how deep they could make that defensive core. And I think they got it to 7 legit NHL players, plus a couple guys who are, as we've talked about, those quadruple A players who can bounce between the NHL and the AHL. And so, Robyn, I mean, are we already going to have to look at Tucson to see if they might need a little bit of extra help up top?
I think it certainly is a possibility. And I think this is, to me, where I think Utah can shine, in my opinion, because I feel like the development team that has been focused on the coaching staff and the development team in Tucson has been nothing short of amazing. If you've been following the Arizona Coyotes in previous years and the Tucson Roadrunners, you got I think that the Roadrunners have been consistently putting out NHL talent, and coming out of nowhere, we kind of didn't expect. Look, we didn't expect Michael Carcone. Like they just picked him up out of nowhere because of a COVID year coming from the Milwaukee, because Milwaukee didn't participate in the COVID year, and they're like, yeah, we'll keep Michael Carcone. Connor Garland was who played in Tucson, ended up becoming a pretty fine NHLer. Lawson Krause was a top liner when I was my first year covering the Roadrunners. And Michael Bunting, and he led the league at led the AHL in scoring for a while, and now look where he is now. So it's you see that there's a pattern there. So I'm not concerned about that. I mean, I like to see how quickly they are ready, but I feel like this is where this is an opportunity to show how much they can shine again.
It is, and I really think that for this hockey club right now, they're young, they're opportunistic, they are still growing, and a lot of hockey teams, you'll hear when somebody goes down, they'll say, well, it's next man up. And yes, it's cliche, but it's also very true. Some guys step into the void and really make themselves known. They show what they're capable of, and they find ways to make it very hard to sit them down ever again. So, every guy wants to be the player that makes that choice hard for the coach. So I think that what Tucson has done the last several years, they've done a nice job of drafting and developing. Now, some of those players, as we've just talked about, have gone on to greener pastures in other places. Dylan Strome, Michael Bunting, they're with other organizations right now. But you still have a lot of that homegrown talent. And I think that speaks volumes about what they're doing in Tucson, about the way they're growing that franchise. And you know what? They weren't afraid to go out and make some acquisitions this summer on the defensive side. And to me, that said they felt the timeline was accelerated a little bit. So I like the confidence there, but also I like the depth of your Ian Cole veteran signing, your Robert Bortuzzo veteran signing. I like those guys coming in to go along with your younger defensemen who are trying to step up into an everyday role.
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see what kind of moves Utah will make if they do decide to kind of take from there. We still haven't really seen Bortuzzo fully yet, so maybe you sit Jersey for a game to make sure he's okay and give Bortuzzo an opportunity, as you talked about, next man up, because he is the next one available. But you still need to at least take someone from Tucson to be a seventh man just in case.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I've seen it happen. Someone takes a puck in the face in warmups, and then you need somebody else. It happens. Or in morning skate. Things happen in morning skate, and you never wish for that. Boy, you certainly hope it never happens, but it does. So, yeah, you're always a little wary. And, on the NHL side, again, we talked about how you can carry up to 23. Utah, most teams don't do that. Yeah. Very rarely do you see someone 23 contracts sitting up on the books, especially in the cap era. So, but if you need to, you can bring somebody up. You'll have the roster spot. You're able to put them out there if you need to use them in a game. So I would not be surprised if someone made the trip to join the team in Anaheim for Wednesday's game.
And I feel like that's the good opportunity, because Tucson is not too far. I think Tucson's just coming home from a road trip, starting on the road in their season. So they'll be back. So it's an easy Tucson to John Wayne or LAX airport, an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
You can even fly to Long Beach.
True, you can do that too.
Yeah. And the other thing too, Robyn, is here, I'm going to tease a future show, because we haven't gotten to this yet, but, and we're not getting to this on this show. I'm not going down this rabbit hole right now. However, worst comes to worst, there are names that are out there that could help Utah Hockey Club. That is on a future episode of
Locked On. But really quick, Tom. Obviously, we don't. We're gonna have a little bit more closer to a full-on preview later in the week. But I do want to kind of address this really quick because you kind of talked about it and on what they're going to do now after this loss in New Jersey and what are they going to do from here. To me, I feel like a hallmark of a good team is not just of course they should beat Anaheim. It's how much of a bounce back they're going to have. How do they respond after taking a loss like that to New Jersey to a game in Anaheim? Like, what's the response? I think that's, to me, is the big question. That's going to help decide that hallmark of a good team versus a average team.
I agree, Rob. And I think that, the bounce back that we need to see here is one that shows character and heart. And that is what you look for against Anaheim. Again, a team that you should beat, you should be better than. And I think that that's one of the most important things for me is to see exactly what they do in response to that. Now you're going to have Ingram back in net, and today I don't put any of that on Veggie. I think he played fine. I don't have a problem with it.
He did what he could.
Yeah, he was fine. But again, you don't win games you don't score goals in. And like I talked about, race to 3. Well, that's where New Jersey got to. They got to 3, and they got the win. So I think, to me, you hit the reset button. You might see probably Liam O'Brien back out. He was back in the lineup today. I think he swings back out. You make that, switch it forward again, and you may have to make a change of defense. Not that you want to, but you might have to if Jersey's unable to go.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see that those moves are. Again, we're not in the locker room. We're listening. We're not the fly on the wall, listening to Andre Tourigny making these decisions. I mean, we can ask him. I mean, like, his best we can do is try to get those questions in. But I mean, at this point, we can only find out later.
No one ever tells you anything with hockey injuries.
Exactly.
And I think
that's the joke about it, right? Because
yeah,
in hockey, in a lot of other sports, they'll be like, oh yeah, someone stub their toe or sprain their wrist or whatever. They'll say a lot in other sports, but in hockey, it's upper body injury, lower body injury, nothing else.
Yep. And eventually it's going to be an on the body injury. It is somewhere on the body. And Barry Trotz had a great line about, well, if a guy hurts his hand and he holds it above his waist, it's an upper body. If he holds his hand below his waist, it's a lower body injury. So, the NHL is very guarded and very secretive about things. And that's why rumors get out, wrong things get reported, but everybody's trying to jump on and see what's going on with blah, blah, blah injuries. And so I don't like to play that game. And that's why, because it is very easy to be wrong. And so I just don't like to try to guess at what anything is when it comes to injuries with players.
It is really interesting when you do see people like watch film or whatever, or go to practice and try to take a look. Like, all right, let's see how are they skating? Are they favoring a side? Are they like, what are they doing? And it's like,
right. And I mean, it's in any sport, they'll try, and they might try to disguise it too. Like a guy might go out and try to limp on his left leg when really it's his right leg, or something like that. I don't know. And try to fake people out.
It really is interesting. But any other thoughts about what you think about this team and kind of moving forward, and what you'd expect from this Utah team at this point?
I think a little defensive jumble might not hurt them. Try to shake it up a little bit, get some other guys in the lineup, and just, really have them focus. If Jersey's out, I think the focus will be more on the defensive side of the puck. They'll get back to scoring goals. That's not a problem. I'm not worried about that. I just think that they really need to clean up in their own zone, and they really need, and I'm not even worried about the number of shots, Robyn. I'm worried about the quality of shots. Mm-hmm. If they give up 10 to 12 perimeter chances a period, I don't care as much about that as I care about 6 to 8 high danger chances in the slot near the crease, that kind of thing. So to me, it's not just quality, but quantity, or not, well, reverse that. But I just want to see them give up fewer high danger chances in these good shooting areas, because NHL shooters are pretty darn good. I mean, the goaltenders are good, don't get me wrong. But the shooters are pretty good too.
Yeah, especially if you get like a shooter like you've seen in this previous game, like where you saw like Jesper Bratt or a couple other, like I think who are some of the other, like, or Jack Hughes, who are just instantly mean. Like they're like if they get the puck on their stick, they knew what they wanted. That kind of really showed a little bit of that difference. But again, we're now looking forward to seeing what this Utah team can do. How can this defense respond? How are they gonna shore that up?
It's a gap you have to close. It's that simple.
It is. But that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. If you guys like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube, CBS XM, and ad-free on Amazon Music. Thank all the people who are subscribed. You guys are also some amazing followers. You interact with our show, and I just want to put that out there. We absolutely love all our followers out there. Interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Threads, on Twitter. We're at LO_NHL Utah. I am personally at Robyn_Leano. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on air. And if you guys want a little bit extra dose of us, be a part of our Insider Text Club at 801-760-9033. That's 801-760-9033. To be a part of it, you'll send a text to that number, and we'll send you a link right back to get started and sign up. Your first 14 days are always free. You'll get access to a lot of insider content that we have coming your way, our insider mailbag, and more coming your way all season long. Well, thanks again, everyone, once again, for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you guys next time.